Hello, welcome to a video. It's that end of year content. Today we are not talking the best of the best. We are not talking the worst of the worst. We are talking somewhere in the middle of that scale. Today I want to go through some books that kind of disappointed me, but at the same time I want to go through some books that surprised me pleasantly as well. I feel like there was a lot that happened to my reading taste this year that warrants surprises being spoken of, and they're not necessarily in the middle somewhere. Some of these have come out pretty high on my list. They're still not the best of the best, but just pleasant surprises. And as I say, my reading taste has gone through a lot of changes this year, so I feel like it kind of has been the year of surprises, and I hope we carry that into next year as well. So with that being said, actually, I'm gonna kick us off with some surprises of 2024 in terms of my reading taste. Number one of those surprises is gonna be my stumbling into romance. I don't have a book for this because the romances I have been reading have been on my Kindle, but the one I want to mention as the surprise for this, the romance that I've read this year that I think is the best of the romance I've read this year, and one that has surprised me, and I will continue the series, and I actually had a very good time with this, is Holding the Reins by Paisley Hope. This is a cowboy romance that was recommended to me by Steph from Steph Loves. This ended up getting 4 stars from me, which is wild. I have never been much of a romance reader. It's always been something that I've kind of rolled my eyes at and has never been my thing. It's just never had enough plot for me. But this year, something happened that made me really just want a book that would give me the warm fuzzies, something that would make me feel all gooey inside. And it's been a bit of a mission to find that. I've listened to a lot of recommendations from Steph this year whilst stumbling around in romance. There have been others that I have enjoyed, like Lights Out by Kayla James. I liked that. Didn't love it, but I liked it. I have been reading the Dream Harbor series. Not a favourite, but didn't either surprise me nor disappoint me. That one was kind of just what I expected it to be. But Holding the Reins by Paisley Hope very much surprised me, ended up getting 4 stars from me, and I want to continue that series. I'm looking forward to continuing that series when the romance vibe hits me. As I say, cowboy romance also meets kind of hockey romance as well. Our main character is moving back home, and someone from her childhood who was a big hockey star has also moved back to their hometown, but he also happens to be her brother's best friend, and sparks fly, so it's kind of like a off-limits brother's best friend situation. Lots at risk, but they are made to be together. And I just thoroughly enjoyed myself with that book, and it definitely took me by surprise. So, Paisley Hope, well done. I will be continuing. I think the next one is Training the Heart, which follows another one of the characters from that, which was actually one of the brothers. So I'm looking forward to diving into that at some point. Welcome me to the Romance Readers Club. I'm falling in. Next, another genre that I've dabbled my feet into in 2024 was horror, which surprised me, and I did not think that horror would be my thing. But I read Bloom by Delilah Dawson in 2024, which is a horror. It's only a little horror, but it is a horror. When sweet romance turns deadly. This is a romantic horror. Our main character in this falls in love with someone with a lot of secrets, and for the most part this was unsettling and a little bit eerie, and then at the end, bam bam bam, things were happening. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to risk spoiling a teeny tiny book for anyone who hasn't read it, but the unsettling vibes in this were fantastic. I was at points a little bit like, okay, something's off, but we're just taking a little while to get there. What's going on? So I was maybe could have done with a bit more pace, I don't know. But surprised overall in that I read a horror and liked it. So then similarly, I'm going to throw The Salt Grows Heavy on here as well as another horror that took me by surprise. This one had a very different vibe. This one was a bit more creepy fairy tale-esque, a bit more whimsy in it, whereas this one was very much like real life murderer. This one was more like fairy tale, eerie, a bit magical, but unsettling at the same time. This one follows a mermaid who is a brutal killer as well, and a plague doctor as they stumble upon some children playing a game, and there is something very vicious and wrong about these kids and where they come from and what they're doing. Two very different horror vibes that I didn't necessarily think would be for me, but I ended up enjoying both of these. So, surprise, I've been finding my feet in horror as well as romance. Shocking. Just on the horror note, another surprise I want to mention is Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. There is a vlog where I read this somewhere, and this was an experience because this is horror meets romance, meets whimsy, meets gore, meets fantasy. This is a very weird book, but my goodness, it worked so well. This one follows a monster called Shasheshan, and she is monstrous. She will eat people. She is an amorphous blob. She changes shape, she can look human, she can look monstrous, she absorbs like matter and bodies and things to form new shapes, and she is gory and grim and gross and murderous and monstrous. And she falls in love. And the love story is cute and wholesome and heartwarming, and somehow the combination just works, and it doesn't sound like something that would work, but it does, and this was pleasantly surprising, and one that I think I will continue to recommend, because it was just so good. So good. So this is getting a mention in surprises as well. Something else that I definitely cannot ignore when talking about surprises of 2024 is my fall into adoring translated healing fiction. Prior to this year, I had not dabbled in that at all, really? I don't think so. And I ended up falling in love with translated fiction. The first one of those being the Kamigawa Food Detectives, and this book started something for me. I fell into a hole after this and have been reading a lot of translated healing fiction since. This one is a Japanese bestseller. I think this one was translated by Jessie Kirkwood as well, who I have... Yes, Jessie Kirkwood, who I've realised translates a lot of the books that I've been reading. But this one is about a father-daughter duo who run the Kamigawa Diner and Food Detective Agency. You can go to the detective agency with a sort of vague memory of a meal you had in your past, and between the father-daughter duo, they are able to recreate this meal from your past for whatever reason it may be that you need it. But in typical healing fiction, it will help you make a decision or help you overcome something or unlock a memory or make a choice or move on to the next step in your life. These meals are important to these people, and them being accurately recreated by the Kamigawa Food Detectives is the key in that lock for them. And this book was fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and it did just unlock something else for me in my absolute adoration of healing fiction now. So another one I'm going to throw on here is Days at the Murasaki Bookshop as well. This one hit me in the feels. This one had more of an overarching plot. Rather than like the individual stories of people overcoming things, this actually follows like one narrative. And this is, I've forgotten her name entirely, Takako. Takako is in a rough patch in her life and she quits her job, moves away from the city that she lived in to go and stay with her uncle at the Murasaki bookshop. And in spending her time with her uncle and the books and this community, she finds a new passion for life, but also reconnects with her uncle and things that have happened in her family and with her uncle and her aunt and so on. And it hit me in the feels. Similar but different vibes of healing translated fiction, and I loved both of these, and it's definitely been a surprise for me falling into a different genre that's so out there, so different from the typical fantasy that I love. Like, I haven't previously really considered myself as being into slice of life, but that is what it has been, and it's just encouraged me to explore more outside of my comfort zone, and I really feel like that is something that has happened this year, and these two surprises helped that to happen. Okay, moving on. We're just going to finish off surprises. I've only got two more for you. One of those is... I'm making a real mess over here. One of those is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. This came in a fairy loot box, and I didn't really know much about it before it arrived, but something about this just made me think, you need to read that right now. It just called out to me. And I think this is a YA one as well. Oh no, it's not. It did come in the adult box. My mistake. But this just called to me, and I had the best time, the most heartwarming time. I loved it. This follows Tao, who is a travelling fortune teller of small fortunes, and for reasons that at the start are unknown to us, she travels alone, she sticks to small fortunes, she doesn't make connections, she doesn't stay anywhere for very long, until when on the road she is confronted by these two men, and she thinks, oh god, I'm gonna get robbed, but instead they end up helping her and they form a bit of a friendship. So from her being on her own at the very beginning, throughout this book, Tao finds friends and connections, and she goes from travelling alone to travelling with 4 or 5 people and pets. And she really finds the value of connection and having people that are there for her. And it was just really heartwarming, and I had a fantastic time. It says on the back, small fortunes, big feelings. Big feelings indeed. I really ended up enjoying this one, and I'm glad that for whatever reason it called out to me, because I had the best time. Absolutely loved it. And then my final surprise is one that I actually read in December, so I don't know if my December wrap-up will have gone up at this point or whatnot, but Sorcery and Small Magics. Oh my god, I am besotted with this book and these characters. This is probably the closest to, like, romantasy that I love. I'm not really a romantasy reader. Maybe, surprise of 2025, maybe I'll get into that. But this is the slowest burn of slow burn romances. Like, they've got no idea, even at the end of this book, they've got no idea. This follows Leavander Lovage and Sebastian Grimm, and they are the trope of Grumpy Sunshine, even in their names. Leavander Lovage, he is delightful. He is a lovely, delightful, chirpy, lovely. And Sebastian Grimm, they call him Grimm. Like, he is grumpy, he is grim. You don't need any other word than his name for that, do you? And they hate each other. They cannot get on. But there is something about them that they just orbit each other and come back into each other's circles all the time. They can't get away from each other, but they despise each other until Sebastian accidentally curses Leo. And then they have to go on a bit of a quest together to undo this very forbidden curse that Leo has now got on him, which was accidentally cast by Grimm. Their friendship grows into something more, and the author's note in here, like, they even say, when I say slow burn, I mean it. I want Leo and Grimm's shenanigans to constantly make readers tear their hair out or throw the book across the room. Metaphorically, of course, it's too pretty to actually throw, but also go running to scoop it back up again, eager to find out what happens next. The slow burn is slow, and I am in love with these characters, and it was another one that just something about it made me think, I want to pick that up right now. Why? It's not my usual cup of tea. It's slow burn romance and fantasy. It is fantasy romance, not my normal cup of tea. I loved it and cannot wait for more from this. I need to know what happens with them next. Ah! I loved it. I loved it. Okay, and there are my surprises for you. I didn't think I had enough surprises to make a whole video on surprises, but I probably could stop here and this be a video on its own. But I'm not going to do that because we're doing surprises and disappointments. So, I've only got 4 disappointments, and they all disappointed me for kind of similar reasons. I don't know if maybe 2024 is the year that I've just... No, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say fallen out with epic fantasy, but that's not the case. Let's not say that. Because that truly isn't the case. There's other epics that I've read this year that I have loved. But, right, let's go over here. Let's start with A Time of Dread by John Gwynne. And I think this is going to prove my point, actually, because I also read Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne this year, and that got 5 stars. I loved it. This just about scraped a 3. And can I remember anything about this book? No. Am I excited to pick up book 2 in this? Not really. Am I determined to? Yes, because I've heard that it gets better and book 1 is just a bit of a weak link. So I will. But am I excited about it? No, I'm not. This book just fell so flat for me. I read it, and I enjoyed elements of it because it follows on from the events of the Faithful and the Fallen series. Malice, Valor, Ruin, Wrath, that series, which I loved from John Gwynne. And I have faith in John Gwynne's writing abilities because I know from reading his other books that he can do incredible things. But the only thing that kept me in this book was the fact that there were nods to the history of the world, which were things that I knew from the first series, so it was almost like, I don't want to say Easter eggs because it wasn't hidden like an Easter egg, but it was just nods and acknowledgements to the history and things that I feel like I was there for because I read the first series, which was nice. But the characters in this did nothing for me. I can't even remember the plot of this. This book just fell out of my brain as I was reading it because the characters did nothing for me at all. Until the very end, when something happened to one of the characters that was kind of like a, oh, cool, what's going to happen to you now that this thing has been revealed and exposed to us? But otherwise, even the first line of the blurb is just a nod to what happens in the first books. A race of warrior angels once defeated by a demon horde. Now, the Benelim rule the banished lands. Peace is brutally enforced. Rah rah rah, demons are rising again. So, darkness is once again on the rise to battle light, but like, which side's good, which side's bad? Kind of a bit repetitive, I guess, of what happened in The Faithful and the Fallen. So plot-wise, cool, yeah, but character-wise? Nah. I will continue. I have heard from a few people, actually, that the first one in this trilogy is a bit of a weak link, and it does get a lot better. And these are the smallest of John Gwynne's books. And now that I have also read the whole Bloodsworn saga, these are the only John Gwynne books I need to read to have completed John Gwynne's catalogue, which I feel is quite an accomplishment, so I will do it. But this one, let me down. This next one didn't let me down quite so much, but I'm mentioning it anyway. The Darkness Before Them by Matthew Ward. I loved Legacy of Ash and Legacy of Steel. We won't talk about Legacy of Light, I'll get there. But I loved what I had read from Matthew Ward before I picked this up. So much. And this one was then just 3 stars. It was just fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but after how much I loved what I had read from Matthew Ward before, this one was just fine. And maybe if this was the first Matthew Ward I had read, maybe it wouldn't have disappointed me so much, but I wouldn't have been quite so excited to pick up Legacy of Ash. But after how much I loved his other stuff, this was just okay. This one follows a girl called Kat. She's a thief, and she is after one big thing that will sort her life out, set her family score, everything would be great. She can settle the enormous amount of debt she's in, but this is no easy feat in a realm where indentured spirits hold vigil over every vault and treasure room. But Kat has a unique gift. She can speak to the spirits. She can even command them. She's not a hero, she just wants to be free, to have her old life back, but as rebellion rekindles, the war for the future begins. Everyone, including Kat, will have to pick a side. That element of it, the heist, happens very quickly. And we're then on the run, I suppose, but there's a big secret, there's a big thing. People are not who they seem to be, and I am intrigued to continue, but it just didn't hook me. Like, when I think about it and describe it now, like, there was that heist happens very quickly, life after that is on the run, there was a big consequence of that heist that has very dramatically impacted Kat's life. Where Kat then finds herself is intriguing. There is this rebellion that she is then kind of sucked into, and her unique gift makes her useful. And there is the political side of this, where people are not who you might think they are. Everyone's kind of out for themselves. There's some interesting family dynamics going on in the political world. And thinking about it and describing it, fantastic, great. It just didn't get me. I was disappointed, but I am going to continue, and I have higher hopes for the second book. We'll see. We'll see. Now, this one is going to be difficult for me to talk about because I can't remember it. It's another one that's fallen out of my head, hence why it's on the disappointments list, you know? But we have The Kingdom of Liars by Nick Martell. I have the other 2 books in this trilogy. I don't know if I'm gonna read them. This wasn't bad. Like, looking at my core pile sheet, I can see I gave it 3 stars. So it wasn't bad, but I had heard amazing things going into this. And again, it's one of those ones where on paper, this should have been incredible for me. The king has been murdered. Michael is branded a traitor and his family exiled after his father murdered the king's 9-year-old son. That's it, the son, not the king. Michael now lives by conning and cheating and dueling minor royals, and then an opportunity arises to return to court via the most dangerous member of the royal council. Michael takes it, hoping for clues to unlock his hidden past. There are secrets, and Kingdom of Liars very much is apt here. People are hiding the truth, but there's also something to do with memory in this world, and people who have magical abilities, each time they use their magic, they are putting their memories at risk and losing little bits of themselves. And Michael, our main character, definitely has some sort of hidden past, but he's not aware of it because the memories have gone. So what actually happened, who is covering what, etc. But it just didn't stick in my head. I haven't thought about it since. I remember this taking me a really long time to read and there being debates of DNFing it. But I didn't DNF it. I pushed through and I finished it. And I think the fact that there were debates for DNF just proves that it hadn't sucked me in. I wasn't having the best time with it, and I don't know if I'm gonna continue on with the series. But can I pinpoint for you why and what the issue was? No. Not really. The final disappointment, and I'm not saying this is bad, but it was a disappointment, and it was another December read. But I have to say it, The Grace of Kings. This read like a dense history textbook, and that's the problem with this. I read this very recently, so the vlog where I read this will be up somewhere, where I talk more about my thoughts and feelings on this one. But it read like a dense history textbook, and now that I've finished it, I can appreciate that this book, considering, like, it doesn't look small, but for the span that it covers, for how much it's telling us, it is quite small. For the years, the political changes, the number of characters that this covers, it's quite small. And I have been made aware that this is retelling a historical event and is attempting to be somewhat historically accurate, which is possibly why it reads so much like a history textbook. But because of that, there was no emotional development at all. I did not feel connected to any of these characters. They could all, and did mostly, die, and I not feel anything about it. Because it was trying so much to tell so much story, there was no space for us to get to know the characters. There was no space for us to feel anything. Like, the battle scenes just read like results. Here's what happened. There was no choreographed storytelling to it. It was just dense history textbook-like. And that is my main problem with this book. Lots of people I have seen feel the same way about book one. And I have heard that the rest of the series does get a lot better. So I seem to just have a lot of problems with book ones in series here, because all four of these disappointments have been book ones in series that supposedly will get better. I am going to give book two in this series a try. If book two has me feeling the same way that this did, then I might reevaluate if I continue on with the series, which is very disappointing because these are the gorgeous broken binding editions, and I wanted to love this so much because I had heard fantastic things about it. And it's then when I've started reading it, people have come out of the woodworks, seen me having issues with it, and been like, yeah, I felt that too. So, a shame. A real shame on this one, but I will give book two a try. Anyway, there we go. There are my pleasant surprises and not so pleasant disappointments of 2024. It's been a bit of a reading roller coaster, as we can tell just from this. Anyway, thanks for watching and hanging out with me. If you have any thoughts and feelings that you want to share on these books that I've mentioned, feel free to do so down below. And what was your best pleasant surprise of 2024? I'm not asking for your best book of 2024, but one that surprised you in the best possible way. Let me know that down below as well. Alright, thanks for hanging out for a bit. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you in whatever comes next. Bye!